who else in the DC universe, within the Batman pantheon, could you step up and have be Batman without
that people would care about?
Yeah, that would get a lapsed fan, somebody who's familiar enough with Batman as a franchise to want to check it out, but not knowledgeable enough about comics to know the deep cuts. Who have you got?
Catwoman.
I mean, I was thinking like Catwoman or Barbara Gordon. Yeah, I mean, you could. It just... they wouldn't call themselves Batman.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics. Keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Sometimes, owning a business can be what is called stressful.
I am not familiar with that feeling at all. Describe it to me.
Abject terror?
Not abject. I mean, it's... If I had to speculate, because again, I've never felt this way.
Of course.
It's like a kind of like background radiation of financial terror. It's
mixed with?
We're running a small business, specifically within the comics industry, is like in those cartoons where the character runs off a cliff, and they can keep going as long as they don't look down, and as soon as they look down, they plummet to their deaths.
That's the name of this episode. We looked down.
Oh, Patrick.
No. Saying looking down implies impending doom.
No, it's not.
I'm just talking about day-to-day stress and how little things can add up, and when you don't realize it, things are then suddenly very heavy.
Sure.
And
on your chest.
This has just been a very stressful week.
Or a couple weeks, but definitely the last week for sure.
The only thing is we thought the stress was over and now it's back and intensified.
Yeah, multiplied in some way. And unfortunately I feel bad because this is all stuff that we kind of can't go into much detail about currently. Maybe in the future.
Maybe.
Maybe in the near future, maybe in the far future, but right now
maybe at my funeral you can tell people.
Where it's like, hey, it's stressful running a business, y'all.
That's true. But what kind of business is it, Dal?
It's a comics industry business, podcast business on the Yak Channel podcast network.
I mean, close enough. I just meant what kind of business we run.
No, I wanted to do the thing.
A Mickey Mouse operation is what it is.
Not even Betty Boop.
But more importantly, we sell comics.
We do.
And a bunch of good comics came out this week.
They certainly did. I think The Batman's Grave, which I really love that it's called The Batman's Grave.
Yes.
I just love crap like that.
Yep.
It's so good. I had told you when the announcement was out that there would be a comic for the Wolverine. You excitedly asked me if it was called the Wolverine, and I said, no, it's just called Wolverine. And you were disappointed.
I was.
Rightly so.
This is also one of the few comic book logos that use lowercase letters.
The Batman's Grave?
Yeah.
Yes. And an apostrophe.
Yeah, exactly.
Just punctuation at all.
Historically, you can think of Fantastic Four. That was always lowercase.
Sure.
It still is now, but it's more stylized. And that may be all. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not common. That's true. The other good book that came out this week, surprisingly, maybe a little bit, was Dr. Doom #1.
Dr. Doom.
From Marvel Comic Books. I like Christopher Cantwell a lot. His stuff is not necessarily a home run as far as connecting with readers. We were big fans of She Could Fly Volume 1, but it is not exactly something that's an easy sell or an easy description. The sequel series has not done great.
You can't really describe it without bumming people out. Yeah,
it's an exploration of kind of clinical depression and emotional instability in a way that is more entertaining than that sentence should be. But it's by somebody who's had these issues growing up and in adulthood, and it's sort of him exploring that idea within a very comic booky sci-fi universe paradigm.
But Dr. Doom,
and I was going to say everything is his other Dark Horse book from Berger Books, and it's similarly difficult to describe. It's sort of generally in like a Stephen King small town beset upon by otherworldly terrors, but it's how that stuff is explored and how it's using the idea of big box stores in the 1980s and how those pushed out small businesses and redefined what
commerce and retail
suburban life was like, and how that almost quaint that kind of seems here in the nearly 2020s as we're dealing with someone like Amazon completely reshaping how big box retail works.
I remember it was always an event to go to the Zare or the Venture.
Sure. Or going to the mall.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
It's like that classic Robin Sparkle song.
Sandcastles in the Sand?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure.
Sure. So yeah, Christopher Cantwell's a guy that I liked his TV show a lot the last few seasons, not the first one. And I like his comics, even though they're difficult to sell. Doctor Doom, though, was, I thought, really strong. It's still got those same Christopher Cantwell flourishes where it's like, oh, I don't know if anyone's going to understand what this is because I don't know if I understand what this is. But there's a kind of structure to it that still works really well. So hopefully it finds an audience. We're definitely going to push it.
And it's obviously the villain never thinks they're the villain. They think they're the hero.
Right.
And this is very much the hero Doctor Doom. But is it?
Yeah, there's stuff that they're doing in there that I wouldn't want to spoil, obviously. But in general, the idea of Doom as a guy who is just constantly infuriated by a world that won't do things his way when they're clearly right. Is perfect, and I could read that character. I told you that there's a larger story that Christopher Cantwell's telling with it,
yes.
And obviously things that he wants to explore in the world of the Marvel Universe. I would have been fine if it was just like the West Wing with Doctor Doom, just seeing him run Latveria.
How does he run his country?
The scenes of that in Doctor Doom #1 sold me on the whole book. So if it was just that, if they'd never had like a twist 2/3 of the way through, I would have been fine. I would have signed up for that book easy. So it'll be interesting to see with subsequent issues how much he gets away from what I liked and what's replacing it and where he's taking the story. But yeah, it's I like the first issue enough to want to read a few more.
It's very much the hand-wringing Richards
which
Doom,
is great.
which is great. Yeah, oh for sure. That I remember in Infinity there was a scene specifically of that, which was so great.
Yeah, I like a Doctor Doom that you can modulate his behavior from like, shooting people into space or executing people who speak against him or, loving his country and sacrificing for it. And all these things are like a part of his puzzle. But I like the idea that his rage at Richards never dips below, man, F that guy. Like, he'll never get better than that. Like, he'll get insanely, like, vengeful against him, depending on the storyline. But even just at a basic, like, you bring that dude's name up and you're going to get shut down. Like, he literally does not even want to hear his name. And I like that. That's fun. Doom's a fun villain. Not to segue or get off topic, but one of the things that someone brought up right away when Disney got the rights to the Fox Marvel movie properties back was that the big get isn't necessarily the X-Men or the Fantastic Four, but that you get Doctor Doom back.
Yes.
Because the Marvel movies can frequently have a villain problem. The villains are not as charismatic or as entertaining as the heroes, and in the Marvel Universe you need those kind of recurring, big-name villains to spice up a story, to make the stakes feel big, to be something that it means more when the heroes triumph against them, and Doctor Doom is like the epitome of that, and a great, phase 5 through 10 villain or whatever. The kind of guy that just is in the background there, doing things, plotting things,
putting it all
menacing.
Together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep, you got to cast him right, but you can have a foil forever.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is you could cast literally anyone, because I can't imagine you're going to see his face at all.
That's true. It's true.
Maybe in a flashback or something, but in general, anybody could voice him. Would you do like a European accent for him? Would you do a British accent for him? What do you do for Doom? For movie Doom?
You have to do a European accent.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Latveria is part of the EU.
Yeah, but I mean, they could... I don't think it is, actually. I can't remember if it is or not from that first issue. They mentioned the EU, but I think Latveria is outside of it.
Okay.
But,
well, I don't know. I looked on a map and I
educated.
could not find where it was.
It's near Sankara. They share a border, remember? It's been established that Victor Von Doom did a lot of his schooling overseas.
Yes.
Definitely his collegiate stuff was in the U.S.
Yes.
So you could argue maybe he has a slight to no accent because of
Do you think that guy would let his accent go away? I think the pompousness of a Victor Von Doom is he will always have it.
I guess, I mean, if you're arguing that, then I guess the argument would be that he'd always speak Latvian, but he clearly doesn't.
Yeah,
he speaks English.
True.
I worry sometimes that when they do a Doom in the movie, it's going to be like, oh, that accent's
distracting,
not natural and sort of distracting, and maybe they shouldn't have done it. Like, I'm not saying he should just sound like John Hamm, but better that than like John Hamm doing an accent or something.
I assume it's just going to be Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to come back.
Right? Uh-huh.
That dude loves it. He loved his time on a Marvel movie.
Sure. Cover up his face. We just want his voice.
Uh-huh.
It worked so well in V.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Doctor Doom, real good book. Liked it a lot.
Pretty good, yeah.
We have a bunch. We got a bunch of number ones.
Yeah.
Happy to have it on the shelf for a while.
Yeah, and it was a tough thing this week because I feel like we're better off pushing the Batman's Grave because it's easier to pitch a Batman book than a Doctor Doom book. But going forward, I think we'll definitely spend a little bit more effort putting Doctor Doom in people's hands that maybe passed it up this week.
Yeah. What should be easy to put in people's hands would be X-Men #1. That not only does it come out next week, but it comes out at midnight.
Yeah, we're doing a midnight release for it.
Midnight
I assume
release.
a lot of stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be all of the week's books, so no one has to make a second trip, but it is in celebration of X-Men #1 from Marvel Comic Books.
But you show up at midnight and you can buy everything for the week.
Yeah. Yeah, all the Marvel stuff, all the DC stuff, all the Image, and everybody else. All of the Wednesday books we are authorized to sell at 12:01 a.m.
Just to be clear, we're not opening at midnight and staying open the whole day.
No.
We're opening at midnight and closing when people stop coming in, traditionally like 12:30, 12:40.
Yeah,
people come in, grab their stuff, and take off. It's not a hangout. It's not a
no.
Hey, let's hang out in the store till 2 a.m.
No, most people want to go home and get some sleep, and
right.
so do we. So as a result, we will not be open past 1 a.m. Probably not even that long. So if you're planning on attending our midnight release for X-Men #1, definitely plan on showing up closer to midnight. Any later than that, maybe we're not open anymore.
That's true. Or if you work till midnight and you're driving over, just call first to make sure we're there.
Yeah, we'll answer the phone.
Yeah. If we don't answer, we're not there. It was also supposed to be our final Voracious signing, actually this week.
Yeah.
But the trade didn't come out, so it was scheduled for next week. And while it is still listed as coming out for that day on Diamond's website, it is not on our invoice.
Right.
And we double-checked to make sure that not only did we order it, we ordered it on 2 different occasions.
Oof.
So we have definitely orders to come out. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do a signing when it comes out because Marcus Annaso, the co-creator and writer, is moving to Hawaii and has already sent all of his belongings there.
Uh-oh.
He was just going to be in town, I believe, up through next weekend. So I don't know that he'll be in the continental United States when this book comes out.
Yeah, we're in a wait and see on that one.
Yeah, we definitely are. Do you want to talk a little about the Luke Healy event?
Sure, yeah. We were approached by No Brow Press, a company we like a whole lot, that has a new book out by Luke Healy.
Do you know where that came from? Molly Jane.
I do, yes. They mentioned that in the first email.
Okay.
But they have Luke Healy, a creator of theirs, who has a new book out that came out a few weeks ago called Americana and the Act of Getting Over It, about basically a very long hike he took. He is an Irish creator, and he was in the U.S. He attended the Center for Cartoon Studies and was in the U.S. and kind of was exploring it. And through this hike, he's both chronicling the actual physical attempt of it. It's hundreds of miles of a hike. And then also kind of his feelings about America and his experiences with it.
Is this the one from, like, basically California, Mexico, up to Washington, Canada?
Yeah, like Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Yeah. So that book is in stock now, and Luke is going to be touring and hitting some places, and we were approached as potentially being a stop in Chicago, and we leapt at it because we've carried Luke's books before. We've carried Permanent Press, and we were excited to have him make Challengers his Chicago stop, and he had a good idea of making it not just a signing, but also kind of an event. So he has a cartooning workshop that he's done before. It takes about half an hour, and it's something where using Pictionary, he basically helps people learn some basic cartooning skills and kind of move their cartooning from very simple things to more complex ideas through drawing.
Is that going to be held in Sidekicks or on the floor?
We're probably going to hold it on the floor.
Okay.
This is an after-hours event. It's like 7 to 9. And so we'll probably set up where we set up for the Caroline Cash
sure. Yeah, okay.
presentation. So we'll have some chairs up, and he'll walk people through it, and there'll be half an hour of that. And then if there's enough people and if folks are into it, a quick game of Pictionary to show off the skills that people learned.
Awesome.
Following that, Luke's going to do a signing for Americana and whatever else people might have of his. It's an event that's free to attend, although we and Luke and Nobrow would appreciate it if people who showed up bought a copy of the book. It's definitely why he's doing this. So keep that in mind. If you've already bought a copy of the book, that's fine. Bring it. But if you're going to show up for the cartooning workshop, please consider buying a book so that, we can keep hosting stuff like this. Nobrow can keep publishing Luke's books, and Luke can keep doing the books he likes doing. All of that is coming up on October 28th, I believe. Am I getting that right? Is that...
Yeah, it's Monday, October 28th. Yep.
Monday, October 28th, 7 to 9 p.m. at Challengers Comics in Bucktown. You don't need to reserve or anything, but if you can come by and support a really good author who made a little stop at Challengers, that would be great.
We'd love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Center for Cartoon Studies, obviously we talked last week about the event we had, but do you know how we got that one?
No.
They approached Quimby's and said, hey, we want to do this thing. And Quimby said, oh, you should Challengers.
No, that was nice of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as even the people who own Quimby's have to reiterate, Quimby's isn't a comic shop. It's got that reputation all over the world, but they're an alternative bookstore that sells comics and zines. They're not technically a comic book shop, but yeah. I don't... As stated, I don't begrudge anyone who feels that way. I find it perplexing, and it's funny to me that even the ownership is like, I don't know why people say that. But in general, people categorize it how they want to categorize it.
Sure.
I think of Dunkin' Donuts as a donut shop, not a beverage-first business that carries donuts.
Right. We also have a Halloween-themed event on Saturday, October 26th, the signing for the anthology, the horror anthology, Halloween. And there'll be five different creators of that zine there, also showcasing other works of theirs. Mm-hmm. And our usual women's comics nights on the second Monday of the month. The next one is coming up this very Monday, October 14th, and then November 11th. That leads us to Wednesday, November.
Whoa.
Wednesday, November 13th, where our bestest friend Gustavo Duarte is coming all the way from Sao Paulo, Brazil, to meet you and your kids and sign Dear Justice League. And we should probably order some Bizarros, too.
Okay.
And we're very excited because we haven't seen Gustavo in 5 years. We had a great time with him last time. He's such a great guy, and we really want you to come out for this. And then we talked about an event, I don't know, last week we talked about it? We talked about it when we got confirmation, but now it's official.
Yep.
And now it has a date and a time. So Local Comic Shop Day, which we did talk about as on November 23rd, which is a Saturday. That's not all. That is the date of our AJ Mendez and Aimee Garcia, the two writers of the brand new GLOW comic, GLOW vs. the Babyface. And Aimee is a professional actor who's been in lots of things, currently Lucifer, and she, I think, one of her early works was the recurring role in George Lopez show.
She was on Dexter for a long time.
Dexter, that is correct. And AJ is a former World Wrestling Entertainment Women's Champion, and they will be...
And a New York Times bestselling author.
Yes, indeed. So, perfect for comics.
Yeah.
This is a ticketed event. You will have to buy a ticket ahead of time on Eventbrite. We will have all the information posted on our website and all the socials. You can bring something from home to get signed if you have it, but just one thing. Yeah,
here's basically how it's going to work. The ticket that you'll get from Eventbrite is $16 plus Eventbrite's fees, which is like a couple bucks. For that ticket, you get attendance to the event.
Yes.
One copy of GLOW vs. the Babyface #1 that you can have signed by AJ Mendez and Aimee Garcia. The opportunity to have one additional personal item signed by AJ Mendez. The opportunity to have one additional personal item signed by Aimee Garcia. The opportunity to have a photo taken with AJ and Aimee. You will need to provide a camera or phone that can take a picture. We may or may not have anyone that can facilitate taking the photo.
We're assuming not, but hopefully it could be a lot of next person in line, does it?
But we will definitely not have a photographer there to take a picture for you. That is something you will have to be prepared to do. You can have somebody in your party do it. That's fine, too. You will also get, with your ticket purchase, The remaining 3 issues of Glow versus the Babyface, issues 2 through 4, will be set aside for you at Challengers, marked paid for. So you'll be buying all of those in advance. That's what your $16 goes towards. If you're local, we will have those waiting at the store. As issues come out, we will email you to let you know they've arrived, and you can come pick up the next issue. If you are not local, there will be an add-on option to your ticket for $7.50 plus associated Eventbrite fees, which is probably like less than $1. You can purchase shipping for the remaining 3 issues. When the final issue ships in February 2020, after that, sometime in March 2020, we will ship out via priority mail issues 2 through 4 of Glow versus the Babyface to a shipping address you provide.
That's a pretty great deal for $16 plus fees.
I think so, too. The event is going to be Saturday, November 23rd, starting at noon. We are starting with a limit of 250 tickets. You can buy 1 ticket per person. I mean, I don't think we talk about this on the event listing.
Like how many people can...
Yeah, your party can be probably as many people as you want because you're only getting 1 thing signed.
Right.
Well, 3 things altogether.
Yeah.
1 comic and up to 2 personal items, 1 from each creator, and 1 photo. So if that's 5 people, I don't care because you're not getting 1 thing signed for each of them. Right. You're getting 1 thing signed.
Right. Yep.
If you got 4 people that are shadowing you, I don't know, whatever. It's starting at noon on that Saturday. We're starting with 250 tickets. AJ and Aimee, out of the goodness of their hearts, have decided that they will stay as long as necessary to get everybody through the line. So I would recommend, and I recommend this on the event listing, people get there as close to noon as possible so we can get the line moving. We've listed it as being an event from noon to 5 because that may be how long they have to stay there to get all those people through the line.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that if you show up at 4:55, there's necessarily going to be 2 creators there waiting for you to get your book signed. If they finish before that, they finish before that. Get there at noon.
And if you show up without a ticket, we don't have the ability to sell you the ticket there.
Yeah, it is a ticketed event. You will need a ticket and your confirmation email that we have to scan before the event. You can't just show up with $16 and get in line. That's not how this is going to work. But yeah, like Patrick said, all that stuff will be posted on our website. The link to the Eventbrite listing where you can purchase tickets will be on the website. We'll have a link or a notification at least on Instagram and Twitter, and hopefully the creators involved and the publisher and the other creators involved in the book will all send the word out. That would all be great.
So that'll be exciting. That is a big deal. That is local comic shop day as well, and we already talked about that an episode or so ago.
Yeah.
About the things we'll have. And then not even a week later, on that next Friday, it's Black Friday. We're going to have a Black Friday sale.
Yeah, we don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you.
We'll figure it out. We'll tell you.
Yeah, I think we told somebody else who had brought it up that we will not tomorrow are we going to announce it, but I mean, we'll have something by the end of October. We will announce what our Black Friday sale is going to be.
Yeah. So we didn't mean to just run through all the events. We wanted to officially announce we've already officially announced it, but to give you the date and the time.
Yes.
And more details for the AJ Mendez, Aimee Garcia signing, but threw some other stuff in there as well.
Aimee Garcia from Chicago.
That's right.
Raised in Oak Park.
Yeah. And she is your age.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Her birthday is, according to the websites on the Googles, it's Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
Her birthday this year is on Thanksgiving,
Nice.
November 28th.
So it's like a birthday party for her.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. So, Dal, you had a topic you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's something that we had kind of heard some rumors about through the grapevine, and it's something that we necessarily wanted to talk about because, in general, when we hear rumors, it's like, well, if we want to keep hearing rumors, we better not talk about them too much.
Right.
But this is something that's, I guess, rumored enough that it's broken through onto the various journalism websites of the comics media. Specifically, it was talked about on Bleeding Cool, and I don't go to Bleeding Cool, so I didn't know that, but the Comics Beat posted about it today. DC Comic Books, with their editors-in-chiefs and their executive editors...
And their publishers.
Have been working on something that it seems like 2020 is going to heavily focus on for their publishing line. The stuff that the Comics Beat talks about is that the code name for it was 5G.
And it stands for $5,000. That is
$5,000.
how much their cover price will be of all their comics moving forward.
That's the average sales for all their books in 2020. No, it refers to what will be like the 5th generation, basically, of the DC superheroes. and this is going off of the very blurry timeline that Dan DiDio showed off at the New York Comic Con, where the eras of DC's superheroes were kind of chunked into discrete chunks.
Like, it started with Wonder Woman as the first superhero
the
that
first superhero of the DC
was publicly
universe.
known.
And then Superman shows up, and that's up to Crisis, and then Crisis up to Flashpoint, and then Flashpoint up to the present. And then it was like, what's next? And this is something that, again, Bleeding Cool, I guess, did most of the reporting on, or at least the speculating on. And then Comics Beat covered it and sort of added a little bit more context and sort of what they're hearing. But the overall gist of it is that DC is planning a huge sweeping change to their universe next year, in 2020. It could be as little as a bunch of new characters taking over old identities, a new Batman, a new Superman, a new Green Lantern, a new Flash. Or it could be as big as a brand new 52 style thing where the whole continuity in the world gets shaken up yet again. It's unclear which of those it's going to be. I hope and pray that it's the former, and that it's just some new characters taking over old identities, or old characters taking over new identities. I really, really, really hope it's not we've changed the continuity again.
I want it to be old characters taking over old identities. So, like, Wildcat becomes Atom Smasher.
Okay.
Things like that. Like, the Flash is like, you know what? I want a Green Lantern ring.
Sure. Power Girl's the new Red Tornado.
Yeah, exactly. Things like that.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I don't think a new Green Lantern is a big deal at all, because we get new Green Lanterns all the time.
Yeah,
Far Sector coming up being the most recent one. Yeah. Green Lantern Legacy, the
Younger
Inc book, the Younger Readers book is definitely a new character.
It is, yeah.
Like, that happens all the time.
Yeah. Teen Lantern in Young Justice.
Yeah. Well, we're not sure about that.
Well, I mean,
she's got a hack.
She's got a power ring.
Well,
and that may be where she got her power from, is a character named Power Ring.
There's that. So I don't. I was trying to sum up what ultimately was a joke that I was saying about old characters and old identities. I don't think it's a reboot. I don't think they're starting over.
I hope not.
What they have been trying to do is to make their universe cohesive, make their continuity and their history cohesive, and figure out what goes where. Dan DiDio had said one of the things that they did wrong for Rebirth was when they brought all the continuity back, they didn't know where it went or how it fit. Sure. And what they did wrong for the New 52 was ignoring all that continuity.
Yeah.
They need to be new reader friendly, which is what they're going for, which honestly, I think that their kids line, their former Zoom and Ink lines, are the gateway into the DC universe, but those aren't the gateway into monthly comic books.
So, a whole lot of things to say about this.
Okay.
First, working backwards, the whole idea of, like, we've got to make our line new reader friendly, so we've got to redo all the continuity. That's not a solution. Also, I don't think your books are already reader unfriendly. Like, it's just a goddamn Batman comic,
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need to have to redo your entire continuity to make Superman easy to understand. It's Superman. Some of these characters have been around for 80 years.
Yeah.
They're not hard to get into. It's just that the books aren't good. It's a weird editorial top-down decision of, like, well, we have to get involved and fix this. Like, no, just do better stories. Hire better creators and tell better stories. I know that I'm making that sound super simple and it's incredibly difficult, but Jesus Christ, that's literally the only solution to these problems, is make better comic books. And it's not the sort of thing that you can top-down trick your way into. And so hearing a lot of these things, it's the same problems they've always had. Like, New 52 is not a thing you can solve with more reboots and stuff. Like, you're doing them so fast now. It's only been 2 years, I think, since Rebirth. Am I right on that?
17, yeah.
Yeah. Which, in and of itself, was only 5 years after the New 52?
Yes. 6.
So now, 3 years after Rebirth, we're potentially staring down the barrel of another reboot? Like, it's going to be the sort of thing where every time it's half as long.
It's a half-life, yeah. Every time it's a half-life.
So, is there a point where midway through an issue they're going to have to reboot the universe? oh wait, we're on page 16. No one can follow this story. Let's start over. It's a DC problem ever since Crisis. I love Crisis on Infinite Earths. That book meant a lot to me when I was a younger reader, but holy shit, did it give the worst roadmap for that company. They just got so up their own ass with, like, every story has to be about the complexity and the continuity of the DC universe and how we restructure that. So every 5 or 10 years, you got another writer who's like, I can fix this with 0 Hour or Hyper Time or a Crisis, and it's just like, just leave it alone. Marvel, to their enduring credit, has never done that sort of, we have to change the continuity, because they know that once you do that one time, you will never stop doing it. Like, even House of X, I'm sure a lot of people looked at it as like, oh, they're rebooting it. No! All of the old X-Men stories count.
Taking everything that happened.
Every single one still counts. Sense. They don't have to start it from scratch. You don't ever have to do that. And the sales and critical success of something like House of X is proof positive that you can do these things without restarting your whole goddamn universe. It's a dead end. It's narratively suffocating. And the whole success of Rebirth is down to widening the aperture. Not collapsing it, not making it smaller as to the stories you can tell or where you start these things, but how much more stuff you're including in the narrative toolbox. How many more versions of the characters and more history and more stories that you can play off of and add to. And I don't want to be this asshole who says this every 3 weeks, but when I hear these things from Dan DiDio, it's just like, holy shit, this guy does not get it. He is maybe one of the worst people to be at the wheel of that company, because every time he says these things, it's a guy who sincerely thinks, New 52 was great, there were just a couple problems, and if we tweak that, we can make it work again. And it's like, you can't. It was a terrible idea. It worked for 3 months. And then it didn't work for 4.5 years. This is not something that was a near miss. It was a total failure.
It seems as if their competition across the country is also aware of what they're going through at all times. They've started reprinting old Stan soapboxes in their books since Stan passed away.
Sure.
But they're always picking themes that really illustrate their own current publishing plans.
And weaknesses.
And, yeah, right?
And inadvertent weaknesses.
So the one that's in the new issues is so poignant for this. And I don't know if I'll read the whole thing, but I'll just get you the gist of it. Every time one of our sagacious, I don't even know what that word means, superheroes guest stars in another mag, we get bombarded with the same type of complaints from Marveldom Assembled. How can Thor be fighting litterbugs with Nick Fury when he's in outer space with Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod in his own mag? Or how can Captain America be trapped by Aunt May in Spidey's mag when he's running a school for teenage dropouts in his own swingin' stanza?
That was a terrible issue of Amazing Spider-Man, by the way.
Agreed.
It doesn't get brought up enough because I know everyone's like, Spider-Man's great, but like that was just a terrible issue.
Well,
Amazing.
I mean, talking about when
Steve
Ditko
Rogers
is
off his game on that
met
one.
Aunt May during the war is just weird. So we have two choices. Either we stop crossover guest starring, or we ask you to permit us a little literary license. If the doings of one of our repertory players in his own mag doesn't seem to jibe with his cameo appearance in some other mag during the same month, let's just say that one story took place a few days before or after the other, and let it go at that, huh? Anyway, we'll try it for a while and see how it shakes you. And if the aforementioned has in any way confused you, welcome to the club.
Mm-hmm.
So basically they're saying...
P.S. Get off my back. Love Stanley.
Yeah, they're saying, who cares about continuity?
Sure. Which, I mean, is a larger problem now, and it's mostly not the, like, hey, in this month's issue of Cap, he's doing one thing, but in this month's issue of Avengers, he's doing something else. It's the larger, for this entire storyline and a year and a half of publishing, Black Panther's in space.
I should have said
but
that
he's
was
in
from
all these other comic books.
August of 1969.
Yeah, still relevant.
Yep.
Yeah, the DC thing, they need to do something. I don't think they need to do a grand line-wide something, but most of their monthly superhero comics, or I guess I should say ongoing superhero comic books, need help. They are not selling great, and they're consistently not selling great. Their special projects are doing amazing, and that's, again, I think their strength as a publisher is the special projects, the miniseries, the Black Label things, whatever, all that stuff seems like it's clicking real well with the audience. So more of that, great. I think it's doing really well, and it's creating an identity for DC as a more prestigious publisher than Marvel, in the way they package stuff, in the way that they get certain creators to tell more mature stories with some of these characters. I think that's a huge strength of DC's publishing. The average DC Universe superhero title, though, no one cares about.
Do you think that their plan moving forward with this 5th generation of characters, of the standalone established characters, but with new civilians as them, while keeping Black Label moving with your Bruce Wayne Batman stories, your Clark Kent Superman stories, is your way to have your cake and eat it too?
That was the beat speculation, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if that's necessarily the plan so much as just an inadvertent consequence. But I think it could be a way to do it where, you've got... It's kind of back to when Marvel was doing, a couple Captain America books, a couple Spider-Man books, and whatever, where it's like they're both... You can pick which one you want. You want the Sam Wilson one? Here's the Sam Wilson one. You want the Steve Rogers one? Here's the Steve Rogers one. So, yeah, there's no limit to the number of Bruce Wayne Batman stories that a creator could come in and tell. But having something that was, right now it's Luke Fox or whatever, like that could be a way to, like you said, have your cake and eat it too. So that way there's not as much pressure on DC as a publisher to revert back to Bruce Wayne as Batman because the sales aren't great. Well, just sell a different Bruce Wayne Batman comic. It's not a big deal. If it's just a matter of them putting new characters and costumes and stuff, I think that's a fun idea. I've never really been disappointed by that when a publisher does it because it's...
I mean, your first Green Lantern was Kyle Rayner.
Yeah.
Your first Flash was Wally West.
Yeah, I think it's intrinsic to superhero comics, especially when they've run for decades, that you can get some freshness by putting a different character in there and exploring how they approach being Flash or Batman or Superman and how that's different than the way that, Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne or Barry Allen has done it.
Do you think they do a disservice to those characters when eventually the Hal Jordan and the Barry Allen come back?
Yeah.
And, where's Kyle Rayner now?
Yeah.
Where is... Wally West, poor guy.
Yeah.
Just been put through the ringer.
Yeah, Dick Grayson. That's been the perpetual problem with Dick Grayson is that he can't ever become Batman, but he also can't ever be Robin again. So they're constantly having to find a place for him. And now Tim Drake, where it's like, the path would be Robin eventually becomes Nightwing, becomes Batman, and that can be like a pathway for those other characters. But
in reality, Queen Elizabeth still hasn't died, so there is no new king.
You just got this traffic jam where no one can go anywhere, and it's just getting weirder and weirder. Yeah, them doing, legacy stuff and changing character identities around, I think that's very fun, and I think it's an easy way for freshness. A line-wide reboot or anything, I am
fundamentally against.
Somewhere between cautiously pessimistic and openly disdainful of. Depending on where I'm at in my day and what else is going on and what's aggravating me. I don't think it's a good idea on any level. I think any sales potential you'll see from that is so limited and would be so long-term detrimental to your publishing that I cannot understand why you would possibly think of doing that again. So I'm hoping that the reboot stuff is just, early plans that got changed or someone confused what they heard and is reporting something that isn't accurate. I really, really, really hope the reboot thing isn't happening. That's so stupid that I would lose what little respect I have for DC's editorial structure. I hope they're smart enough at this point to see how dumb an idea that is. But other characters coming in, yeah, man, I think that could be fun. I think in general, that's not going to solve their problems, but it's definitely going to create a little space for them to get people excited again. If it's a character someone knows already, I don't know what they've got where they could take somebody that we already know and make them a Green Lantern or a Flash or whatever.
How about Black Canary?
Is which one?
Green Lantern.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't think Black Canary's got enough fans that they'd be like, oh, I gotta check out this book. I can't believe...
She's Green Lantern and Deceased.
Oh, is she? Okay,
yeah.
I didn't read that book.
It's too bad. It's good.
Marvel's got those characters where you can step somebody up and suddenly people are like, oh shit, I gotta read that comic where, Sam Wilson takes over as Captain America or whatever. It's hard for me to see that in DC. Take Batman, for example. If Bruce Wayne's not Batman, who becomes Batman? Dick Grayson? They've done Dick Grayson as Batman a bunch of times. It's okay. I think people would enjoy it, but you wouldn't get a bunch of lapsed fans to come in.
Right.
The rumors of Luke Fox, it depends on the creative team. Luke Fox isn't a character almost anyone knows about, despite him now being like a cast member on the Batwoman TV show. He's not really well known, and most people, when they hear that, probably think, the Morgan Freeman character?
Yeah.
Like, that guy's become Batman? Which may get people excited. I'd like to see Morgan Freeman as Batman, yes. Okay.
I mean, you'd say, why not Alfred? But Alfred's been Batman plenty of times.
Yeah. Plus currently dead.
But I read Batman's Grave #1.
What?
The Batman's Grave. I like that the is as big as Batman's and Grave. It's not smaller.
When we did the out-of-stock card for it, I made sure I put the label as the Batman's Grave.
Nice.
Who else in the DC universe, within the Batman pantheon, could you step up and have be Batman without
that people would care about?
Yeah, that would get a lapsed fan, somebody who's familiar enough with Batman as a franchise to want to check it out, but not knowledgeable enough about comics to know the deep cuts. Who have you got?
Catwoman.
I mean, I was thinking like Catwoman or Barbara Gordon. Yeah, I mean, you could. It just... They wouldn't call themselves Batman. Do you know what I mean?
You mean like Iron Man?
But that's the thing. You're the one who constantly tells me that Riri Williams did not call herself Iron Man.
That's true. Yeah.
Even though the book was called Iron Man, she never said, I'm Iron Man.
What about that girl who became Spider-Man for a while? Remember that?
Maddie Franklin? The John Byrne stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, Maddie Franklin.
Yeah, okay. Who then became Jonah's daughter?
Yeah, who then got addicted to, like, drugs?
GBH?
In MGH?
MGH, sorry.
In Alias?
The fake GBH.
Uh-huh.
Forgive me.
Mutant growth hormone. Yeah, it's... You could go, like, a total left field, like a completely different character. Like, you could sincerely do, like, I don't know, what if Hal Jordan becomes Batman? And then maybe you get some people to be like, that's weird, I'd check that out. But it's such a limiting idea. Like, he would suck at it. He'd be terrible as Batman.
Yeah, he would.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they have a deep enough roster to do that. And also, a lot of the suspects that you could pick have all been tapped out. They've all done it.
In order to retire, the only reason Batman agrees to retire is if he knows Gotham is still saved. So Superman says, fine, I'll be Batman and Superman.
Sure, I think that could be fun. There's weird.
My dumb ideas, I think, are very entertaining.
They legitimately are. I mean, there's sincerely some weird stuff where it wouldn't just be like a supporting cast member graduates up to full time. That could be really fun, where it's so bonkers that you're like, I don't even know what that book looks like. I'll read the first issue.
Currently in DC's, Damian is Batman.
Okay,
but it's painfully obvious to everyone. Like, why is a 12-year-old acting as Batman?
A tiny 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Did you read this week's Superman?
I did not yet.
It's a really good David LaFuente illustrated issue.
Oh, awesome.
Where John Kent, now that he's back and a teenager, runs into Damian for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just a really fun issue. I don't know that Bendis, in this or in Event Leviathan, gets Damian's voice right. Mostly in this issue of Superman, I think he really gets the voice wrong. But it's still a pretty cute issue of like these two friends and how things have changed for them, and are they still friends, and what does that friendship mean?
Yeah.
It's cute. It's a cute little issue. But yeah, I mean, one of the rumors is John Kent becomes the new Superman.
Which, how does that affect Legion of Superheroes? Because you have to assume he does it when he comes back from being 1,000 years in the future.
Sure. But, I mean, time travel. They've done whole runs of Legion of Superheroes that are...
Well...
Superboy was here for this entire storyline, but he only missed, like, 2 issues of Teen Titans.
Sure. It's just awkward where there's no ultimate... unless he's constantly going back and forth.
Sure. I like the idea of it being something he does, like, after school or on the weekends or something. I don't think that's what they're doing with it, but maybe. I don't want to see him not in the Superman books for the next however long he's in Legion of Superheroes. That would be lame.
Did you see the buy-in for the Legion rings?
I did, yeah.
We're not going to qualify for any of them.
For any of them?
No, we'll have to pay for them.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, we were going to anyway.
Right. But, I mean, you could get them.
Oh, okay.
If you ordered X amount. And then they have the platinum one.
Yeah.
Which there's no way.
I don't know about no way, but there's not a really good way. There's a returnable level that we could hit. We'd just be ordering a ton of copies, and I don't know if it'd be worth stretching
to get the platinum one, you have to order 400 copies.
Incorrect. 100.
You have to have 100 of each cover.
No, it's just 1 in 100 is what I read on the DC email.
Oh, okay.
And the returnability for us is 125 copies.
Is it? Okay.
After that, it becomes returnable.
Yeah, it was 125% of Batman 65.
Yeah, and that issue was the price, and we ordered a bunch more.
Oh,
so
God, jerks!
Yep, they didn't just pick a random issue. They picked the crossover issue. Part 1 of the crossover issues.
Oh.
Where we're like, we're going to need a bunch of this because we have to get it for the Flash readers.
Tie it to the Flash.
Nobody cared.
Nope.
Oh, my God.
Nope.
Those almost all 4 parts of those, I think, are in our 99-cent back issues.
Yep.
Nobody cared.
Man.
Yeah, I think DC needs to do something. I
like that you always do the math for those.
Because sometimes we qualify for it. Sometimes we're close,
but I mean, what I mean by that is,
miles away.
I mean, before we do the order, like,
sure,
I do the math at the time of order. You do it in advance.
Yeah, when they come up with a number like that, I'm like, what number is that for us? Because I'm more curious than anything. It's not like I'm doing it for my job so much as like my curiosity got the better of me. I needed to know what is the reach they need us to do on this, and it's like, I don't know if we can do that. That's a lot of copies of a Legion of Superheroes comic that not a lot of people are signed up for in advance.
Yeah, honestly, the Millennium book is not doing well, but to be fair, it's not a Legion of Superheroes comic.
No, despite saying Legion of Superheroes at the top and collectively costing like $10 to read the whole thing.
And what is the cover to issue 2? The entire Legion holding out a ring.
Sure, because that is the end of the book. Mm-hmm. That's a Bendis hallmark. Whatever the cover is, that is the final thing in the issue.
If it's in the issue at all.
Yeah, if it manages to show up at all, it's the last thing that'll happen. So if like the cover is Superman learning some crazy secret, he will learn that on page 19 of the comic book. That's where he'll find out what's going on. The other 18 pages are going to be a completely different story that has nothing to do with the cover.
That being said, I'm still very much enjoying Bendis's DC books.
Sure.
Event Leviathan, which is such a weird concept where it takes us 5 months in real time to go through one night in DC time.
Mm-hmm. What I love best about Event Leviathan and all the Bendis books is that they are running this completely separate DC Universe shaking event at the same time that every other book in their line is doing all of this Lex Luthor Year of the Villain stuff.
Yep.
Like, if you open a Bendis book, it would seem like Leviathan is on every street corner, that every superhero in the DC Universe is having to deal with the threat of Leviathan. But you read any other book, and Leviathan's not mentioned, and they're all dealing with, like, Lex Luthor powering up all these villains.
Yeah.
And or the Batman Who Laughs. Like, it's such a cliche that, like, Bendis doesn't read anyone else's books, but good lord, it's... Did anyone at this company tell him, look, we're doing a thing where there's this big universe-shaking event. Could you not do yours at the exact same time? I know it's Year of the Villain, but Jesus, that doesn't mean anything.
I had the very difficult task of trying to explain to someone who read the Batman Who Laughs and didn't understand what Superman or Batman Superman is.
Uh-huh.
And they said, well, is it a sequel? Well, no, it's a Batman and Superman comic where the Batman Who Laughs is the villain. Mm. But I mean, is this where he went after that? Like, he's in it. He's the bad guy, but it's not his book.
Right.
Right. But so like this one came out. Like, yeah, it came after, but it's not. I mean, he's well. So how? And he didn't understand the infecting of the other heroes and whatnot. Sure. I'm like, look, this is he's from a different reality. He's in the main DC universe now. Mm. He's infecting DC heroes, and then he was confused with Deceased at the same time.
Sure.
Well, how can both those be happening at the same time? They're not. Deceased is in a different reality.
They're happening at the same time in different universes.
Yeah,
different characters.
Okay, so this is the next Batman Who Laughs comic.
Sure.
If you want it to be, yes, it is.
Sure, man.
I mean, he's not really in it.
You're $4.
Yeah, exactly.
I had,
I'm cursing the existence of that character every time.
I had sort of a similar conversation with someone in regards to the House of X and Powers of 10 and X-Men #1 coming out.
Yeah.
It was someone who was bemoaning X-Men #1 coming out because, they're rebooting it again. Like, it's not a reboot, it's just an X-Men #1. Like, all the other stories happened. Yeah, but, I mean, it's the new #1. Like, yeah, but they do new #1s for books all the time. It's not changing the story in any way.
All the time.
But he would not hear of it. He kept using the word reboot, and I kept wanting to say, I don't think that means what you think it means.
Yeah, really, for the few people that exist that are not going to pick up X-Men, Do you think House and Powers is a complete story? Like, oh, I read this, I'm good.
For someone, it's going to feel that way. I can't imagine how, because
it's so much setup for what's going to come next.
Like, it's a cool story. I love it.
Sure.
I'm excited to own it when the hardcover comes out, but nothing about it is like, wipe my hands. Like, I finished. Like, you're at the start of a probably 3-year story.
Yep.
There's even things in Powers of 10 number 6 where it's like, they're telling you this situation is not resolved. There are going to be consequences from the decisions they've made in House of X and Powers of 10 that have to be paid off. So people who are checking out after this, I can't imagine why. If you enjoyed it, why would you not want to see where the story goes next? At the very least, read X-Men.
Yeah.
I don't know that and somebody brought this up in an email, and I'm hoping that there will be something in X-Men number 1 that does a better job of this. But I was really surprised that in Powers of 10 number 6, or released alongside of it for free, there was not some sort of packet,
some primer
promoting the other X-Men titles, all the Dawn of X stuff that's coming out, because most people really have not had it pitched to them by Marvel what New Mutants and Fallen Angels and X-Force and Marauders and Excalibur are doing, and it's certainly not in the book that just came out. Like, if you read House of X and Powers of 10, nothing in there tells you what the hell Fallen Angels is supposed to be about.
No.
Like, those characters don't appear anywhere in House of X and Powers of 10.
But do you think even those books will tell you? Like, for example,
they have to make a case for themselves.
Savage Avengers.
Sure.
How was that pitched?
It's all of the most savage Avengers, plus a bunch of savage other characters who are now Avengers.
They're not, though. It's these characters that slowly got thrown together to complete a mission. The mission is completed, and they all go their separate ways. Like, the first issue of the new arc was entirely...
I don't know if it's even a new arc. It lists inside as part 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it was entirely Conan and Punisher.
Yeah.
That's it. Walking through the Savage Land.
Well,
dragging dead bodies behind them.
You can't sell a book called Savage Secret Defenders, so you got to call it Savage Avengers.
But I mean, what my point is, there's been no reasons for a team. There's been no acknowledgement of a team.
Sure.
While the book is called Savage Avengers, the characters themselves point out how they are not a team and this is not a thing they're doing regularly. It's a one-off.
I don't think that'll be a problem for the Dawn of X books, because everything that Hickman has said in interviews and panels and stuff is that this is a bigger idea that he's building with these other creators. I don't think that any of these books were like, well, we've got to have a book called New Mutants, we've got to have a book called Marauders, we've got to have a book called Fallen Angels. Yeah. So what are we going to do with that? And or, Ben Percy saying, I've got this idea, can we fit it in? It's all stuff where
he's a character with metal claws that come out of his arms?
Yeah, there's this larger world that's built, and I think they're looking at certain things. Like, Marauders is clearly, like, that's the most set-up book of anything from the Dawn of X books besides X-Men. That's the one where it's like, oh, they were doing a bunch with Emma Frost, and they're teasing this idea of an additional member of the Quiet Council that's going to be serving alongside Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw. The drugs that are being made by Krakoa have to get to the human populace. All of this stuff it's a very easy way to see where that goes. Stuff like Excalibur, it's like, I don't know how those characters make sense. I don't understand what their mission statement is. I don't understand what that is as a concept. And it's again, a little surprising to me that at the conclusion of House of X and Powers of 10, where you have the easiest jumping off point for so many readers, there wasn't more of an attempt to retain them through concerted pitches of, here's pages of artwork, here's the creators talking about it. They've done other promo things that include some of that stuff, but just general Marvel Universe, here's some stuff, instead of, you only care about X-Men, here's what the next 6 X-Men books are about. Like, do that. That seems like a no-brainer, and I'm shocked they didn't do it.
Didn't they kind of do it? They showed the covers, and then had blurbs all in Krakoa?
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a mutant. I didn't have that downloaded into my brain.
I will tell you that there's been a few times over these last 12 issues where I had a chart. What do you call it?
A lexicon?
Sure. For
the Krakoan alphabet?
Yeah, I was going to say a key. But yeah.
A language key? A decoder?
Thank you, yes. And the blurbs for the next issues that are all in Krakoan, did not correspond to the alphabet that I had.
Oops.
Yeah. And that was an alphabet that was given to retailers in advance that we got from somebody.
Maybe that's just classic mutant
But like
misinformation.
some of them were and some of them weren't. Like he'd made up even more letters. I mean, it's a pretty bold maneuver to say, I'm going to redo the alphabet.
Sure.
And there's a T and a Th letter.
Yeah, in one of the issues of House of X or Powers of 10, they printed the Krakoan alphabet.
Yeah, and it was the same one. That was the same one.
And I don't remember it. I don't care enough to find that stuff out. I'm sure someone out there is annotating all of these things, and they're welcome to it. I don't need that much out of the book.
So much of it in issue 6 of Powers.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. There's no clear-cut, like, what's the most relevant one? I guess X-Men. That's what we're banking on, because Jonathan Hickman writes it.
Which, again, I mean, I hope in X-Men #1 maybe there's some sort of fold-out in the middle or something in the back where they can just shove in the basic, like, elevator pitches of these books. Like, what are they doing and why should I read them? There's been a lot of fan interest already, which is great, but there's going to be people on the fence, and I'm going to have to wait until, the day of release to be able to tell them, here's why you should read this comic book, because I don't know yet. Because what they've given us in solicitations is so coy and vague, because they don't want to give away what was going on in House of X and Powers of 10, that it's not useless, but less useful.
It's like Chip Zdarsky wrote all the blurbs.
Kind of, yeah.
So speaking of those fold-outs, I read Amazing Spider-Man from this week today.
First one I skipped in probably,
which
10 years?
Is the second part of their two-part Carnage, Absolute Carnage crossover.
That's why I skipped it.
31 or 32?
That's why I skipped it.
Well, what I found, first of all, it's such an awkward story because it takes place in the middle of Absolute Carnage, which I've not read.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, those two issues made you feel like we were missing out on a whole other story.
That's why I only read the first part.
But just missing. But what bothered me most about this particular issue is in the middle of it is one of those fold-outs you talked about.
Sure.
All for $20.99.
Okay.
Now, $20.99 is a storyline that springs out of Amazing Spider-Man.
The next storyline, I think.
The very next issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
I think is there an alpha first? Is alpha before
the very next issue of Amazing Spider-Man is an $20.99 issue.
Okay.
So it tells you all about November's books and December's books and Amazing Spider-Man and Alpha and the 3 other $29.99 standalones in November, and then the 4 in December, and the 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man and the $20.99 Omega in December. And then in the back of the book, it gives you all the rest of Absolute Carnage. And it shows you where we have and what we've come through up to and what we still have to go to next.
Sure.
So it's like these 2 major Spider storylines happening at the same time. And the next Spider-Man is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I guess I didn't consider $20.99 and Absolute Carnage to feel like they were from the same family, because I look at the Venom stuff as so separate from Spider-Man.
Sure, but
you're right.
Spider-Man's in it.
And it is. I mean, it's right on top of each other. I mean, there's a Venom 2099 coming out in December.
Yeah, and there's a Miles Morales Absolute Carnage, which is spider-related.
Yeah. It's not great when they have that stuff kind of pile up on top of each other. And now that they added an extra month to Absolute Carnage, it is on top of each other.
Ugh.
It's selling well, though. People like that book.
Yeah, it's just, there's too much of it. And I was dealing with somebody yesterday who was trying to make sense of, I forget, one of the 2 of them. Not 2099, because it didn't come out yet, but probably Absolute Carnage. And lamenting about how much money it all costs, but at the same time acknowledging that they are buying it.
Yeah.
So it only costs the money that you give them. It only costs $6 if you pay $6.
Sure, but at the same time, for a lot of fans, there's this feeling, self-inflicted or not, that you have to be reading all of the parts to get the whole story. Like you said, I mean, if you were just reading Amazing Spider-Man, the last 2 issues don't make a lot of sense.
No.
Because you weren't reading Absolute Carnage. So should you have been reading Absolute Carnage ahead of time? What if you happen to also read Miles Morales? Should you be reading the Absolute Carnage Miles Morales miniseries by Saladin Ahmed? Is that going to be important later? What about Immortal Hulk fans? Do they have to read, et cetera, and all of this stuff? And in theory, you don't have to. That you can always read a synopsis online or wait for the writer to catch you up, or just not buy a book because you feel like you have to, but for a lot of fans, they do feel like they have to, that they're supposed to be reading these other things.
But if you look at the numbers of Absolute Carnage, the main series, versus any of those spin-offs, not counting Amazing Spider-Man, which outsells it already,
sure,
it doesn't do that.
I guess I'd say there's maybe, and this is just top of my head, I'm not looking at any numbers, probably 20 to 25% of fans that read a main event series that feel like they need to be reading at least some of the tie-in series, and maybe like 5 to 10% that feel like they have to read everything.
I see. Okay.
Like, that's what we were seeing off of stuff like War of the Realms and Absolute Carnage. Is there's going to be... Yeah, I think for Absolute Carnage, I think it's about 10% want everything, and the tie-in series and stuff, it fluctuates, but yeah, I mean, probably like 20 to 25% are reading, in general, are reading the tie-ins. If not every tie-in.
Yeah, I just...
Which I guess what I'm saying is that's what we should be ordering for $20.99.
Right, which honestly doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah, a lot of these one-shots and miniseries...
Especially since they're going to be, what, $5 each, probably?
It's the frustration we frequently have with these sort of events, where you're kind of asked to completely buy in before you see what the interest is. And if you guess wrong, you've lost a bunch of money. Like, we don't get to see how Amazing Spider-Man sold for a couple issues, or how 2099 Alpha sold, and then lock in our numbers. We're kind of locking in our numbers for the first month all at once, and that creates a situation where it incentivizes us to order low, because if we order high, we're ordering high on everything, and we've completely screwed ourselves. I would rather sell out across the board than get stuck across the board.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
And since we can't seem to, like, sell out and then build up, or get stuck with one but then reduce our numbers down, we only get to do one or the other. So I'm going to order low and hope to sell out, instead of ordering high, where I could maybe sell a few more, but risk getting caught with a bunch of issues that I'm going to have to put in the 99-cent back issues in 2 months.
Yep.
Because that's the lifespan for these events, is 2 months. After that, nobody cares. Because they're on to the next event. You know, by the time 2099 ends, it's like, well, what's the January event? It's going to be something. Incoming comes out in December.
Yeah.
So something's going to happen in January.
It's all the end books, too. Don't forget those.
Yeah, I guess.
And Ravencroft.
And Annihilation Scourge.
Yeah.
Which no one cares about.
So I guess the answer is, what isn't the event for next month?
I don't know.
I don't want to know.
Oh, it'll be fine.
Well, if not, you'll get to hear all about it next week.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.